Now, you mentioned Randy Orton and AJ Styles, and I 100% agree with that. And the term I use to describe those two is foolproof. They've been involved in some stuff in WWE that I haven't been crazy about. Like, I wasn't a big fan of Bray Wyatt in the Fiend character. I thought that character was so cartoonish, it damaged guys he worked with, but it didn't damage Randy, and he made it work. Like I said, he's foolproof, isn't he?
Yes. And like I've said before, Randy might not be able to do everything AJ can in terms of the aerial stuff, but what Randy can't do, he can take, if that makes sense to you.
Oh, yeah.
In other words,
he can work with anybody, any style.
He could work with anybody, at any style. And, if the great ones, and just like towards the end of my career, I was put in roles where I had to survive, you got to go with the humor. If they want to put you in a humorous role, I mean, look at me. They put me in a nut house for a month. I made it work. but probably a good reason.
Yeah, I thought that was a shoot. I was going to say.
A lot of people thought that. Now he's normal.
Well, Randy, like you said, can make anything work. And moving on to AJ, I think he's foolproof as well. And he's another guy. He went through the ringer in Japan. He worked at Impact. He's worked everywhere, worked Indies, worked Ring of Honor, and he's excelled everywhere. And I think he's grown as a performer because of that. I think a lot of wrestlers would do themselves a ton of good by working in so many places, but I just don't think that's the way the business is ever going to be again.
I don't think it will be either. But AJ, I'll tell you this, for my money right now, AJ is as good as Shawn Michaels.
Really? That expand on that a bit, Nate, because that's a pretty big statement.
Well, they both prove you don't have to be the biggest, but they can wrestle anybody big. Like Shawn's great matches with Taker and whoever else. I wasn't a big guy, but I could work with anybody too. And I mean, not everybody's going to be 6'5". Not everybody's going to be built like Lex Luger or built like some of the young guys today with tremendous physiques. AJ's got a really good physique. He looks like an athlete. He carries himself like an athlete. And with Randy, you just watch Randy walk down the aisle. He doesn't do anything flashy, but you're looking at a world-class athlete. And the same for Omega. I mean, some guys just carry themselves, and I call it, oh God. You could just tell when a guy's standing there getting ready to tie up. It's language. I call it body language. To be great, you never have to you can never let the fans see you drop your arms or drop your guard or body English and body language is so important if you want to be called great.
I agree with all that. Why do you think AJ didn't get the career break? Well, the break with WWE rather, until he was relatively late in his career. Honestly, Nate, I'm going to say it's because he sounds so Southern. And that is a black mark in WWE. It just is. Always has been.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll tell you this. I was there the first night he came out, and you would have thought he'd been there forever because he blew the roof off the place. Clearly, the fans knew who he was. You know what I mean? And he hasn't let them down since. And with that aerial attack that he brings to stay, I know he's had injuries, but to stay as healthy as he stayed during most of his run at WWE is a miracle, because now, these kids put themselves through. I wrestled 365 days a year, 5 years in a row, with maybe 1 or 2 days off in 5 years. But I wasn't doing moonsaults off the top onto a table and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I couldn't have learned to do that if that had been necessary. Just like what Steamboat would always say. If moonsaults had been in, Steamboat would have been doing them. You know what I mean? That wasn't what happened in our time. But the kids put themselves through so much physically, the men and the women both, that it's a miracle that they stay in one piece. I mean, absolutely.